So for my fellas, made it to the end of the week, man. Good for you. Always around this time is when real easy to get into your head, Gotta go back to work. You gotta leave all these kids. No, you don't want to leave these kids. But as men, it's our job, is it not? And that's like the whole about being a father, about being a dad. It doesn't matter how much we don't want to leave, we have to leave. If we don't leave, we don't provide. If we don't provide, then what are you doing, man? You have mouths to feed. Even if no one showed you, even if you never had a good example, you have to be that example, and that's hard to do when you don't have nothing to base it off of. I know that for a fact. And it's hard to talk about these things because, that whole stigma. Be a man about it. And move the fuck on, you know? And that's not always easy to do, man. And it sucks that as men, we feel like we can't talk to people, especially each other. When I was a youngster, man, I had an older gentleman tell me as I was going through a hiring process, and I never knew this guy. My first time meeting him at the interview, man. I would like to say his name because I've never forgot his words, and it's been over 11 years. He said, as men, we need to hold each other up. As men, we need to take care of each other. And that's real, man. Even if we have a wife, girlfriend, whatever it may be, partner, I feel like we exhaust them with our emotion because it's either they don't want us to have emotion or they're not used to us having emotion, so it makes it somewhat awkward. There's been times, man, where I get happy, dude, and I'm like excited, like a kid about things, and sometimes it seems like it annoys people, like it's too much. You know what I mean? What the hell are you doing? Like, you're not supposed to be this happy fool, you know? Like, and it sucks because who do we have to really talk about this type of stuff? Me, I've felt like I don't have nobody to talk to about this stuff. I can't talk to people around me. They're going to think something's wrong with me. They're going to think I'm weak. You know what I mean? Nobody respects weak. And respect is a big part of what it's about. Like they say, respect equals love to a man. And that's not just for women, man. We want respect from our peers, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know? And it sucks, man, because I talk to these people, and a lot of people like to vent to me, and I like to be there for them and talk to them, man, because it feels good, because I want someone to talk to. You know what I mean? There's been times where I've had no one to talk to, and the only way I can seek out a conversation like that is to call the hotline. You know what I mean? And those guys know what it is, man. And shout out to them, man, because they helped me through quite a lot, and had really good conversations with them, especially the last couple of times I called just recently. They understand it, and they told me the majority of the callers are men, and that's not cool to hear, man. I've had cousins who felt like they're going through it with whatever they were going through, and they've either felt like they didn't have no one to talk to, or they're not being man enough, or you know what I mean, whatever it is, and they try to off themselves, man. Like, that's, I mean, how far is that? How alone do you gotta feel to where you can't talk to nobody? To where you just wanna off yourself like that? I was young when that happened, man, and I kicked myself in the ass for that. Like, really? Really, man? You couldn't, like, homie, you could have talked to me. Why couldn't you talk to me, bro? I wouldn't have judged you. I would not have judged you. Some of us don't grow up with male figures, you know what I mean? Some of us grow up with me, personally, I grew up with the male figure till I was 9. And then after that is not so much until I got older, you know what I mean? And I made my own mistakes and did things. And even then, there's a difference between me and these other kids who had dads. I saw it. It's called discipline, man. And sometimes we have to be our own discipline. Trust me, it's hard living an undisciplined life. And I'm sure it's even harder to be disciplined. But as young men, we need that. And we need to instill this in our children, dude. Because without discipline, it's just, these kids are going to end up seeing nothing wrong with the path we took ourselves. And I don't want my kids on the path I took as a teenager. You know what I mean? I don't want them to be in danger like that. I have teens right now, and, thankfully, they're far from that. Sometimes as parents, man, if we don't have much to offer in terms of life lessons, all we can offer is the truth. Tell your kids the truth. Tell them you regret where you were at their age. Shit, tell them you regret where you're at now. Let them know to look around, and then let them know that they deserve better than their surroundings. You know what I mean? And it's up to us, man. The people it's kind of like somewhat of an addiction. It's up to the person who's addicted to be aware of the addiction and change it. It's up to us to be aware of these generational hand-me-down curses and shit. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, man. There's a lot of good in the old tradition. It's just some of it does need to be challenged. You know what I mean? Like the whole machismo, man. It's like I fucking I had brothers and sisters, but we were really far spaced out. And so I looked for that brotherhood in the neighborhood, and I did find it, man, but I was lucky to have left as soon as my first daughter came. Because if I wouldn't have, it would have been, it probably would have got me in a bad place, man. And, there were other older cats in the neighborhood who wanted better for all the youngsters, and I'm lucky for that. I'm like, oh, don't do this, man. It's just not worth it. Don't do that, because if you do that, you're going to end up with the record, and then what are you going to do? Little things like that, teaching us that it's not about acting hard all the time. Sometimes you got to stay solid, man, inside and out. Being hard is only skin deep. And sometimes people don't have thick skin, Sometimes you can say anything and get a reaction, make them throw away their life or whatever it is. I know how it's hard to not react sometimes too. I can't think of the word, not overreactor, but I get hyped up, about little things sometimes, and I know where it comes from. It's like a hereditary thing, and those type of hereditary things like that, it's hard to get past and get over on and kind of be above it when it's all And like I said, sometimes the best lessons our parents provide to us is how not to be. And sometimes, I honestly think we should be just as grateful for those lessons than the lessons that they show us intentionally. Because if my parents were what they should have been, then, you know what I mean? Maybe there is a chance that I would have neglected my kids. You know what I mean? Because I had that So I wouldn't, you know what I mean? It's I feel like I am how I am with my kids because my parents weren't like that with me. You know, I tell my kids I love them every day. I try to be involved. I try to really care about what's going on with them. Ain't nothing like pouring your heart out to a parent and them just kind of not saying nothing. You know what I mean? And maybe that's part of me being a man and grew up in, or a boy and growing up with the mom. I mean, she had a husband, but I mean, that fool didn't give a fuck about me. I wasn't his kid. You know what I mean? He wasn't trying to raise some snot-nosed little chunky little Chicano boy, you know? It's it's the time that we and time and effort that we choose to stick around our kids when they're the most difficult is what I feel like they'll remember the most. And sometimes that's what we have to do is stick by our kids when it's difficult. We got to remember our kids will always be our kids, even when they're adults. You know, there's never a good time to neglect your kid. You always have consequences, no matter how old you are, no matter how old they are. You don't want your kids to feel like they're not loved, even when they're in their 30s. You know, and that goes to a lot of people not understanding, you know what I mean, or not emphasizing with other people around them for whatever reason. You know, sometimes it's not exactly all their fault. Sometimes they don't know how to be empathetic like that. Sometimes they'll raise the brat or were spoiled. You know what I mean? Sometimes people were spoiled when by their parents, and you know, whatever reason, their parents came from poverty, so they wanted their kids to have everything, or maybe the parents had miscarriages and you know the baby was the only one they had. And I mean, I understand that, but man, sometimes you can really cripple a person by spoiling them in their young days, and that affects your whole line afterwards. Because when you're not there and your spoiled kid is there and they're adults, who's gonna pick up the pieces? Your grandkids? Is that what you want for them? You know what I mean? For them to have to pick up your pieces because you chose to take the easy route instead of to discipline your kids rather than give them everything they want when they want. It's just this is a lot of stuff on my mind lately, man, and it's just I'm trying to make some more videos. I appreciate you guys listening, whoever listened. And like I said, man, as men we need to take care of each other. We need to heal each other. We need to heal each other is what we need to do. Just by listening, dude. Just by telling each other, hey, you're not a piece of shit, dude. You fucking matter, man. It's all right for you to feel sad, dude. It's all right for you to feel happy. It's all right for you to have fucking feelings, man. You know what I mean? Dare I say it? Dare I say it? It's all right for you to have feelings. And like I said, man, I know what it's like to feel defeated. And sometimes you really need to talk to somebody. And I had to resort to call the hotline. And I'll tell you, man, not even on a YouTube video on in person, you know, I've called that hotline numerous times and they sometimes you get a good operator, sometimes you don't. It's the ones that have empathy or that are really make a difference. Because if I feel you and you feel me, you know what I mean, that we take care of each other. You need to be open to men like that. As a man, you got to be open and take care of each other, man, because the world is missing a lot of that, and it's driving us off. And we need to save each other. Thank you guys, man, for listening.